Hello, I'm Gautam Paul from NZ Blockchain Forums, and welcome to the latest edition of Blockchain Bytes. Today, we're going to be talking with Alex Smeele, who is the co-founder and CEO of Non-Fungible Labs, NF Labs, as everyone knows, I think, worldwide. Hello, Alex, and thank you so much for coming on to this edition. Really want to just find out, what started you off on this journey of in the NFT space. I know, the company has gone on leaps and bounds with Fluff World. How did it all come about? What really sort of got you into this?
Yeah, thanks for having me. We formed almost a year ago in March 2020. Personally, I'd kind of dabbled in the crypto space since about 2017, 2016. And had some successes, some not so much, and kind of stepped away from it. I'd at the time been working in a range of different positions around sort of project management, initially working for quite a successful entrepreneur over in the UK, working on projects from entertainment, hospitality, events, construction, investment, tech startups, and charitable philanthropic projects, particularly in Greece and Lebanon through the refugee crisis, and was actually living in London for about 8 years before coming back to New Zealand at the start of 2021, where I was kind of exploring new opportunities. I had, a good understanding of blockchain and the crypto space and its potential to reshape kind of the world as we knew it. Mm-hmm. At the time, I'd kind of only just been introduced to NFTs and really started to see their potential, and connected with someone I kind of knew from the New Zealand scene. I think everyone in the New Zealand scene knows him, Howard-Smith. He's been everywhere. And we kind of connected and were exploring different opportunities around a range of different projects to start, before, we kind of saw the potential of NFTs, and at the time was then introduced to Aaron McDonald and a few others, Andrew Beatson and Matt Hunter, who ended up becoming the co-founders of Non-Fungible Labs. In parallel, actually reconnected with an old friend of mine, Jesse Metcalf, who is our creative director and co-founder. And he is, we've known each other for about half our lives. He's one of those, prolific creatives who never worried about money, never had any money to worry about.
Great position to be in.
Well, it's when you're doing what you love, you don't kind of care about that. And, this is the thing, is he was one of those creatives who just loved to create and wasn't really so interested in how am I going to make money off this. It was just, what's some crazy that I can bring to life today. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we started exploring some projects on the side, myself, just to sort of jump in head first. And in parallel was working with Non-Fungible Labs with Aaron and Brooke and the team there to launch a few projects that they had, until soon enough I realized that we just needed to bring Jesse into Non-Fungible Labs to really have that kind of creative powerhouse as one of the co-founders. That led us through, we had a few different projects that we were toying with at the time. Jesse and myself started one, which was just a kind of pixel 2D project called Pixel of the Apes, which was just...
Yes, I heard about that, read about that, yeah.
A bit of fun. We actually raised a lot of money for like the Jane Goodall Institute through that as well. And we also had a project that was started with Non-Fungible Labs called Unstoppable Art Machine, which was a way that we kind of thought about interesting ways to apply NFTs to more traditional industries. And something like street art has really grown in recent years. If you go back a couple of decades, street art was, a crime. Well, it is still a crime for a large part, but it was no one wanted it. Whereas now, all the trendy companies have some crazy street art outside or something. And we wanted to, the beauty of street art is it's quite ephemeral. It exists in that time and place, but that may disappear before you know it, whether it's the building being knocked down or being painted over. I know the council can often water blast, great pieces of art off by mistake, but we wanted to ensure that we could immortalize these incredible pieces of art, but we did so in a way that made it fun, rewarding, and engaging, which was to create a a treasure hunt with well-known street artists, where we would start releasing clues across social media, and basically this new piece of street art that was put in somewhere slightly hidden would have a QR code attached to it. The first person to find that piece of street art, scan the QR code, got the one-of-one NFT for that piece. And it was a really fun experiment. It was not necessarily a cash cow of sorts. It was quite logistically heavy, and but it was a really interesting way to explore potential use cases for the technology. At the time, we also saw Bored Ape Yacht Club, launch and the success that they had and where the industry was moving. And we realized the potential to kind of drive more in that direction ourselves. When it came to like Pixel of the Apes, where Jesse had been doing them all by hand, which can be quite a laborious process compared to this generative technique, which a lot of other people like Bored Ape Yacht Club were adopting. So we started exploring that as a potential route. We actually had sort of 4 or 5 different kind of concepts in the space at the time. And what we saw was that everything was heading towards the metaverse. This was well before Facebook did their kind of publicity stunt rebrand. And we saw this was heading down this path, but to us, it didn't make sense to be 2D if you're going to be metaverse focused, because, unless you're sitting on a wall, like nothing's going to be 2D in the metaverse. So we decided we'd create a 3D avatar collection. There had been 1 or 2, but no one had really done it very well at the time. And, we were exploring a few different options. We actually, landed on the rabbits came about, or Flufs as we call them, purely because Jesse has a Flemish giant pet rabbit. And it was one that hadn't really been done by anyone else. There's apes left, right, and center nowadays. But when it came to kind of seeing how we could do things that were, I guess, a bit ahead of where everyone else was at, we also then thought, well, okay, if these are supposed to be kind of living avatars that represent us, then they should be animated. And if they're going to be animated, then let's make them dancing. Well, if they're dancing, then let's partner up with some incredible producers to create music that, the owners can actually own the rights to and commercialize themselves. And thus Fluff World was born. We kind of dove headfirst into it once we got the first models back. And it was quite a whirlwind. We just started pulling all the pieces together. It was very much, whenever we were looking at new opportunities or new things that we could do to drive the project forward, the answer was pretty much always yes. And that, I think, was key for us, was, ensuring that whatever we were doing was, 6 months ahead of anyone else in the market. We had this big dream of, how we could actually build this out as a much larger game and ecosystem, and how it would all apply to the metaverse. But, we had to start somewhere. So for us, it made sense to start with the characters, and to start building out this ecosystem of characters, and then start introducing, meta spaces, which we've now done with the boroughs in partnership with Beyond and Wellington, and then kind of continue to expand from there.
The next thing I wanted to sort of move on to is, I know that you're going to be the title sponsor at the South by Southwest XR event in Austin. How did that come about? I mean, are you actually going to be in America for that, or will you do it?
I am, yes. So I will be there on the ground. We have a few others who will be joining. I'll be hosting a few of the panels and talks. It actually came about, it must have been about a month after we launched. So this was still before, Facebook had done that rebrand, and the metaverse still wasn't the buzzword that it was nowadays. But we saw this opportunity, and actually I think it was Brooke and Aaron that saw this opportunity for the sponsorship, the title sponsorship for mixed realities, so XR, VR, and the metaverse at South by. And I think it's important as well that so much of the space just exists digitally, but to be able to have these real world activations or physical kind of transformations between to bridge the two are really important. And South by Southwest is one of, if not the largest, tech, music, culture festivals in the world. 10 days in Austin. So we saw this as just an incredible opportunity for us to, bring a lot of what we're doing to the real world, meet with other people from the industry, and really kind of use it as a platform to establish ourselves. And one of the big things that we're using it for is really a call to arms for the wider industry, because we're in such a fast-moving industry, and so it's such a future-focused industry, but everyone's kind of scrambling and throwing ideas around. Some are sticking, some aren't. But one of the biggest buzzwords in this industry is interoperability. The whole concept of the metaverse and NFTs is I can take my asset from this world to that world and it will work. Now, there's very limited interoperability at the moment. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that, development standards are, there's plenty of different ways that you can build assets and different engines you can build them in. So we're using South by Southwest as to launch a metaverse manifesto, which is essentially a call to arms for the wider industry to sit down together and just answer a few of these kind of key questions that will help build a solid foundation for everyone moving forward, because we're all here for the same purpose. We're all wanting to create some incredible content that can coexist. But if we all do it on our own, then we have to deal with that interoperability issue afterwards. Whereas, we've identified a number of issues around not just interoperability, but security, moderation, communication. There's a whole wealth of kind of new governance procedures that need to be put in place for this new world that we're building. So let's get these experts, let's get the wider industry down together, because, we can't dictate those answers. I'm certainly not smart enough to answer most of those questions. I can help write the question, but let's bring the experts together and sit down at a table and just agree to some standards, so that when we do all start charging forward with everything that we're building, we know that it'll actually work together. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about South by Southwest, is this opportunity to build something that will help the wider industry as a whole come together and work towards a platform that will allow for mass adoption. Because the current system right now is, it's quite expensive, and we need to build in ways that allow for anyone to be able to kind of engage with this industry.
I hate to say this, Alex, but I remember this 30 years ago when www was, everyone was like, oh, what does that mean? And it was all about interoperability. It was all about creating this whole new world of people being able to do things together at one time in one place. And blockchain, obviously, the whole reason and raison d'etre behind that was to get rid of all the idea of having closed proprietarial platforms. Do you think we're finally reaching that stage now where it is going to, because there's been lots of talk about, there's been subject to fraud and, you've got the criminals jumping on the bandwagon. But
yeah, I mean, a lot of that's a bit of a red herring, I think, or a straw man argument, in the sense that, all of these often things that are levied against blockchain and crypto as a whole as, it's a platform for criminals or for hate speech or whatever, like, that's just purely reflective of society as a whole. I don't think there's anything to, in fact, for a large part, a lot of cryptocurrency is incredibly transparent. So you can't, unless you're using specific protocols to hide, which you can do that sort of stuff in more Web 2 environments anyway. But I think it's a very important question to bridge, because we need to ensure that whatever we're building, the big argument, or the big kind of selling point of Web3 cryptocurrency blockchain is that it puts power in the hands of the individual. But as we learned from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, and you have to take accountability for your own security in that respect. Now, it has kind of been accepted as status quo to date that, like, you're going to get hacked or fall victim to a scam or something at some point in this industry. But if we really want to achieve mass adoption, that can't be the way. And it falls into sort of two categories. Because look, if my wallet gets compromised, and that's only ever going to happen because I compromised it unknowingly, of course, but because I clicked on something that I shouldn't have, I can't call the bank and say, hey, get me my money back. It's just not how blockchain works. Whereas if it's so there's kind of two grounds to this. One is education, which is incredibly important. We need to educate people at every point of the way how this industry works. It's one of the most important things that we say to people in our community is, if you're bringing people into this industry, don't just teach them how to set up a wallet and how to go onto OpenSea and buy an NFT. Teach them all of the pitfalls and security issues that, everyone else has experienced at some point. Because, as someone bringing them into this industry, in this community, you do have a certain kind of level of responsibility for educating them. The other side of that is the actual tech itself. Now, if we want to have true decentralization, then we can't have, that governing element that says, hey, no, you stole that, give it back. But there are definitely tools that we can apply on the front end that can mitigate these risks. And a big one, MetaMask is one of the most commonly used wallets, especially when it comes to the NFT space. A lot of what is done currently through MetaMask and these sorts of wallets is essentially blind signing. You don't actually know what it is that you're signing a lot of the time. And I always say this to people, like if, so often a bunch of transactions will be queued and you just, okay, confirm them all. No, reject them. Unless you know exactly what you're signing, you need to reject it. And there's definitely work that can, and I believe is being done on that front to actually provide more in-depth information as to what is going on with that signing process. Because say, for example, if you accidentally landed on a scam website and it looked, for all intents and purposes, legitimate, and you thought you were signing a legitimate transaction, but when that signature popped up, MetaMask said, actually, by the way, this will let them take all of the NFTs out of your wallet or clear out all of your cryptocurrency. That's something that you'd, take a second and review, and are you sure you want to sign this sort of thing? So there's still a lot that needs to be done. I think with any kind of groundbreaking technology, there's going to be teething issues. There's going to be points that we can only learn from the hard way. But I think this space is just filled with so many intelligent people that we'll figure out the answers. There may be a bit of blood, sweat, and tears in the process, but we'll get there in the end, and that's always comes when it comes to breaking new ground.
Thank you. I mean, it's great to hear about a New Zealand tech company doing something that's really making a change, making a difference. And I don't know if you read the sort of New Zealand tech story. Have just announced that they're going to be spending $1 million to promote the New Zealand tech story to the world. To just get the opportunities out there for all of us from here, but also to encourage more talent to come here, which is part of the next stage of the development, I guess, of this whole process in this industry. Yeah,
definitely. And I'm quite proud in terms of not just what we've managed to achieve in our wider ecosystem between us and, Altered State Machine, who are just doing some incredible work when it comes to artificial intelligence ownership and AI and NFTs. Also some of our wider partnerships with the likes of Beyond. But I mean, in New Zealand as a whole is really kind of, as always, punching above its weight when it comes to the space. We have a number of other key platforms from New Zealand, from crypto voxels to ENS domains to Vivi. They're one of the kind of, the leaders when it comes to really high caliber character collectibles from some of the most well-established brands in the world, Marvel, DC, Disney, etc. I think New Zealand really has the potential to become a kind of global Silicon Valley. I think there's work that needs to be done sort of on the infrastructure level and on the government level as well to support that. But in general, I'm very proud of kind of what we've managed to achieve so far, and I don't think we'll be slowing down anytime soon.
Alex, I just have one final question. I mean, you've been phenomenally successful with Fluff World, and you've managed to reach an audience way beyond sort of our borders. Who exactly is this audience? What kind of people are you looking to attract, and what exactly are you trying to fulfill within this space?
Well, I think, our audience themselves, it's very global. We do obviously have a strong base in New Zealand, and I think a lot of that just comes from the sort of Kiwi pride of, just through our wider networks. We've been very kind of key from the start. We never wanted to take a traditional kind of influencer marketing route. So many people in the space will, pay an influencer to shill their project. And all that really does is benefit people that are there just to flip it for a quick profit. It doesn't add any long-term value to the community. So we were just entirely against that process. So we took a very organic approach to how we grew our community. And yes, we had incredible volume in the first few days. That dropped off quite quickly, and it kind of leveled out until which was great for us, because it really shook out all of those people that were just there to flip for a quick profit, and it allowed us the time to build a very strong community. We worked really hard because the crypto and NFT space as a whole can be quite male driven and toxic at times. And that's something that we really needed to buck the trend on. I think just in terms of the characters themselves, they are kind of, more accessible, more friendly. They attract a more diverse audience. And I think we have probably about 30 to 40% females in our community, which is higher than most other projects.
Yeah. Very
and
good.
That was, I think, the characters themselves played a big part in that, but also just the general community culture that we helped drive. We worked really hard in the early days to set this culture in place, to make sure that, anyone could jump into our Discord and engage with us in a way that was, no one was ever kind of shot down for asking a question. It was very welcoming. You'd even have people come in from other projects trying to kind of badmouth us, and everyone would be like, whoa, like, come and hang with us. Like, let's just chat and have some fun or what. So I'm very proud of that side of things, and just the way that we managed to grow the community on that standpoint. I think in terms of how else we've managed to be successful was always to take a very future focused approach, especially where we are now. I see, the amount of these 10K collections that pop up every day is, you can't keep up with them. And it is getting to oversaturation, which is interesting to say, because, when you're looking to try and get mass adoption and, Facebook's 2.8 billion users sort of thing, you're still miles away from that in terms of just the sheer number of avatars. But no one's really doing anything unique or original in that sense anymore. People think they can just launch this avatar and it'll sell out. And, some of these people, that these projects have some of the most talented artists in the world, people that have worked for the biggest film studios in the world, some of the best CG artists. And there's only a certain limit to how far that will take you. There's a digital art side of NFTs, which is kind of standalone. But when you're looking at the avatar collectible side of things, it really comes down to the culture and the promise of future utility. Everything's focused on the metaverse and what will this do in the metaverse, what part will this play, but also the cultural side of it, which is, just to have this place where people feel like they can belong and connect with people all around the world, which has been more and more kind of necessary, especially with COVID and that increasing isolation. So we've managed to kind of balance both of those. We've got such a strong foundation in our community, but then also our roadmap is, we don't have a public roadmap because no one would believe us if we posted it publicly. Like, it's insane, and I still don't even know how we've managed to keep up to date. But the next 6 to 12 months will just be, I don't think anyone's quite ready, especially myself, for what that's going to entail.
Alex, it's been fantastic hearing from you and learning more about the journey behind NF Labs. This is just part of the whole process of what we're doing here at NZ Blockchain Forums, and I'm looking forward to spending more time, maybe later on this year and even next year, in terms of how we develop this space and how we develop opportunities within New Zealand for companies, not just like yourselves, but also the next ones who are going to be following after. So Alex, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And it's been a privilege and been great to hear from you.